I think it's important to say that the interest in football is an interest I had since I was a child. So this is of course part of why I now later in life see an opportunity for me to do research about football. And since I'm also a student of religion in a broad sense, but of course especially Islam and Muslims, I thought the combination is a wonderful combination because of a number of reasons. One, because football is probably one of the largest industries in the world at the moment. It's extremely prolific in media, politics, and in other areas as well. And you can see how football have been, since the 1990s, expanding all over the world and almost conquering different countries and making football popular and something that is in the minds of almost everyone. At the same time, when you can see this kind of then connection between football and a number of other social areas, economy, politics, and public life, what is always forgotten, I think, is the religious aspect. We forget that football clubs are sometimes started by religious congregations, like if you take the English football as an example. Manchester City, Everton, Southampton are clubs that were actually started by Christian churches. And that connection historically, yes, some people know about it, but it's not particularly much talked about. And then what happened in the, I think from late 1980s, but primarily the early 1990s, was also when football became really rich, and also a kind of migration started of football players from sub-Saharan Africa and up to Europe, and many of these players were religious. That's one example. But you can also see other shifts where the English football is influenced more and more by black players. So all this also carries the fact that religion becomes part of the individual players' kind of dressing room, life circumstances, and people start to do signs, symbolic signs. They cross their heart, they do signs, they prostrate if they score the goal, and you can see this idea of religion being on the pitch, so to speak. So my idea of studying football and the kind of intersection with religion came out of this kind of watching football and then seeing this happening in front of me, and then started to think, how is that linkage really played out today? And if you go globally, you will find very easily that clubs are attached to religious organizations still, like in the old days of the English football. We're talking about late 19th century. So if you go to Lebanon, to Israel, if you go to Egypt, if you go to other countries in the world, you will see that connection very clearly, that there is an attachment between a club and a particular expression of religion, a particular religious denomination, etc. So I think this is very fascinating, and I'm very happy then that we can actually display some of all these kind of ideas on football and religion in an exhibition here at the Aga Khan Centre.
I was asked by Leif Stenberg to curate this exhibition on football and religion, which has been a really interesting journey for me, especially because my career has largely been involved in the contemporary visual arts sector and not really involved in exploring subjects such as football. So this was quite a venture and a bit of a challenge, but a really intriguing one. As soon as the conversation started, I thought that there was an opportunity for us to share some inspirational stories around football and religion from a variety of male and female players at different stages of their career. I'd hoped we could relay their connection to the subject of football and religion and how that plays out in their life, both professionally and privately, and hopefully inspire other people to think about the subject as well. Certainly for it to inspire the next generation of football players, regardless of their religious or cultural background. So that was my initial response, and I thought it would be interesting to see if we could talk to a few players from a variety of countries, I guess to see what similarities and differences there might be in some of the stories that they had to share. I wanted to convey this idea of hope, of passion and of play that they have for football and religion, and why the two things are important to them. This exhibition aims to bring football's role as an agent for social mobility. Fundamentally, the exhibition challenges assumptions about who can play the sport by highlighting prominent examples of dynamic individuals determined to break the mould, such as the fantastic Krishna and Sumira Inayat, who are founders of the Gilgit-Baltistan Girls Football League in Pakistan. Their admirable work is an example of the changing relation of religion with football, from a system of beliefs acting as an impediment to personal expression to a powerful marker of social identity that empowers young girls to devote themselves to a sport which is often prohibited by strict religious interpretations. So through pictorial, audiovisual and written mediums, we aim to illustrate that football is not just a sport for everyone, regardless of religion, race, gender or creed, but it is also an agent for change that can influence political and social conventions the world over. This is extended by highlighting the interrelations between football and religion and how the two often overlap, with players praying on the pitch and fans observing religious rituals in tandem. It also reveals football's ability to champion social causes, promote marginalised voices, and create opportunity for inclusion and diversity in ways that no other sport can. In so doing, we hope to inspire people of all ages, but particularly young people who would not usually visit art galleries or cultural sites, to engage in the conversations this exhibition will provoke and encourage. We hope, thus widening, we hope again, the participation in sport and arts, and hopefully inspiring marginalised youths through related stories of hope, passion and play. I was aware we also needed to go beyond talking to players and consult other professionals involved in both sectors. This is where the collaboration with the National Football Museum came in, the connection with the 4-4 Jew exhibition at the Jewish Museum a few years ago, and discovering incredible individuals and organisations such as Christians in Sport, Sports Chaplaincy UK, Nujum Sports, just to name a few. I was also conscious that being within a gallery, the exhibition needed to make a visual and cultural statement about football and religion, that the academic element would be there in form of background narrative running throughout the exhibition, but the primary purpose would be to interpret the subject through visual material.
I'm here in my studio in Northumberland. In a way, I'm a somewhat strange choice for the job of artist on this show, as I grew up disliking football fairly strongly, and finding everything to do with the sport a bit of a mystery, to be honest. As an autistic boy, team sports were a mystery to me, and being forced to play at school bred resentment. Coupled with that, have been for most of my life a fairly devout atheist, although I'm becoming less so as I slip into middle age. However, since my childhood, I've gone on to produce a football-loving son of my own, which has been a window into the real potential beauty of the sport for the people who play it and for the people who watch those people play it. I now have a lot of love for the game of football. The opportunity to work with the range of amazing footballers from around the world on this show and learn about the various ways in which their various religions impact and influence not only their game but their life in general has been eye-opening and genuinely moving. I hope that I've managed to present that to the viewer in an engaging way. The interesting thing about this show, from my perspective as the artist, is that I've been able to make and present such a range of work, from portraits of the interviewees, which are done in brush and ink on paper, and dip pen and bamboo pen, to 17.5-minute film made using a variety of digital animation techniques, but all based upon these pen and ink drawings on paper. Everything begins in an analog medium, even if it ends up being fairly digital, to a phenakistoscopic analog animation, which is this, which will be presented on a constantly rotating turntable within the gallery. The work is extremely varied and has been a delight to work upon.
I invited Ed Merlin Murray to work with me on this exhibition, which in fact is his first solo show. His urban and raw style of drawing and animation was perfect for the brief. I've known him for quite some time, for when I worked in the northeast of England. I have been following his practice on Instagram, and during the pandemic he was creating these short reels of still images on a turntable and recording that motion to make a moving image. So that was one of the things that I very much wanted to have in the show. The art had to be right, and so the artist too, outside of the football and religious focus. Ed's spiritual disposition and his ability to connect with people meant he was ideal for this commission. So we commissioned him to make a series of works inspired by the theme. I had very clear ideas and vision for the exhibition and the type of artwork I wanted. So together with Ed, we achieved this. The curator-artist relationship is a creative one, where we bounce ideas off one another. As a curator, I enjoy the creative dialogue and journey with an artist. For me, the thrill in curating is not just about the research into a subject, but developing an exhibition in its entirety, from nurturing, guiding and supporting an artist along their journey of making, to designing the layout, the content, the colour scheme, the positioning, right down to where the last label is going to go. Being a curator requires you to wear many hats, from interior designer, artist, writer, editor, project manager, educator and academic too. So for me, this isn't just about commissioning something and then taking a step back. I'm very much involved in the decision-making process of the artwork itself. What Ed has produced is a series of works that interpret some of the conversations we have had with the variety of football players and other professionals involved in the game. This exhibition is by no means a formal statement on football and religion, but a glimpse into the subject through a series of stories, ideas and experiences from individuals and organisations involved in the two sectors.
So I've always loved football and loved God as well. I've been a Christian from an early age, and they were my two passions, I think, really, when I was at school. And then after becoming a local minister, I got approached by the outgoing chaplain at Cheltenham Athletic back in 1999 as to whether I might take on the role from him. So I took that on in the year 2000. And then that's gone on from there. So I've been chaplain here for a number of years. But then I also then in 2009 took on the role of pastoral support director in English football, which meant I was working for an organisation called Sports Chaplaincy UK. They were called SCORE in those days, but we changed the name. And my role, supported by the Premier League, the EFL and the PFA, is to oversee chaplaincy throughout English football. So we have chaplains up and down the country, and I'm there to support them, to train them, to work with clubs to find the right sort of person to do the role. And I carry on being chaplain here as well. So the role's all about being pastorally proactive and spiritually reactive. So pastorally caring for everybody, whether they've got a faith or not, and then reacting spiritually, answering those questions, helping people in that journey as well, for those who want to pursue something from a spiritual or religious perspective as well. So it's there for everybody at the club and in the sport. So some of that is around the playing side, players who are involved in the team, injured players as well. So you often find that you spend quite a bit of time in the physio room, talking to players who got long-term injuries, just checking up that they're all right. I've got a good relationship with the head physio and other members of staff as well. So it's been around for that. It's been around on the spiritual side of things. Something that we've done for a number of years is pre-match prayers. That came about because a player asked me to do that. So it's reacting to what they want in that sense, and so being prepared to pray with them a few hours before the game on a match day. But then other aspects as well for people's lives, whether that's a player or another member of staff, if someone's going through bereavement or maybe struggling with things in their marriage, they want to talk to you about things. We've just come through, or still in, I suppose, COVID pandemic. You know, that's raised a lot of issues with people around mental health as well. So it's that general support, being that listening ear for members of staff, and then knowing when to signpost as well. We work closely with the national governing bodies that I've already mentioned, but there are other support mechanisms within the game, and so it's knowing when to signpost to those if it's something around a specific mental health, but if they're around addictions or other things as well. So it's a very general sort of role, but working with others as well. Yes, so a number of clubs find that they get contacted by fans when a loved one dies and says, is there any way that we could have some sort of memorial or have the ashes of the loved one scattered at the ground, on the pitch, whatever. And so what we found at a number of grounds is that they put in memorial gardens. We've got one here at Cholton, and fans will make contact. They can either go up there themselves and just scatter the ashes in the memorial garden, or they can have me as chaplain come along and take a short service for them. And it's very meaningful because fans have had a lot of happy memories. They've been here with dad or mum or grandparents or friends over the years. Maybe this is where they started coming here many years ago, and then the loved one dies, and to actually be able to remember them here is really important. And so we find that we've got a lot of fans, and as I say, it's not unique to us. Lots of clubs find that as well up and down the country, and I think it's a really important service that we can play as chaplains for the supporters. I'm privileged to pray with some players before the game if they want that, but I'm always keen to emphasise with them, particularly if it's a new player who's not been to pre-match prayers before, that I'm not going to pray for a win. I want them to win. I always say that. Of course, I want you to win, but we've got so many chaplains in football now at clubs. Getting on for 70 out of the 92 clubs have got chaplains. So, what would we do? We have a pray-off on the pitch beforehand to see whose prayers are more powerful. So it's not about praying for a win. But I do believe that God has given us all gifts and talents. And so on a match day, to pray with those who have a faith and ask that God would bless those talents, that they would use them for His glory as an act of worship on the pitch, and then pray for everything else that's going on around the day as well, for safety and for fans and everybody that makes it happen. That's really important, and so I'm very happy to do that, but I never pray for a win. In the last 20 plus years, one of the things I've noticed is that there are more players, particularly of faith, within football, with an influx of players coming to the Premier League, particularly from abroad, but that's worked right through into the other divisions as well. So there are more players of faith. I've known players of faith who are Christians or Muslims or Jewish players as well. And it's much more evident. It seems to be being understood now a bit more in football, that this is important and we need to make space for that, which from a chaplaincy perspective, of course, is great for us because it's right where we can be involved in offering support and guidance as well. So that's quite an exciting dimension that I've seen over the last few years.
Nujum Sports is a not-for-profit set up in August 2020 with the aim of supporting Muslim professional athletes, male or female, in their work environment with their faith. So as an organisation, we work with athletes. We provide them with one-to-one support. And that might look like faith advice and direction, counselling and mental health support. We also launched something called the Muslim Athlete Charter in June 2021, which has now been signed by over 55 different clubs and associations like the Wales FA and Cheshire FA, Lancashire FA, and the Rugby Football League. It's also been signed by Premier League clubs like Wolves, Watford, Brentford, QPR, to think of a few, to give these clubs a 10-point guidance into how best support their Muslim athletes whilst they're at their club, their work environment. We also have, every quarter, we have get-togethers with our athletes where it's just an athlete-only environment where they can be themselves, and they get the opportunity to ask the question to an Islamic scholar, and also just get to know each other as well. And in terms of other forms, we've set up loads of prayer rooms, multi-faith rooms around the country, football clubs and their training grounds as well. We feel it's important to inform the clubs and have a dialogue with clubs regarding the work environment of their players. Very important because the players need to practice their faith. I think it's important that the club know how to provide that support to their players from the right people from an Islamic background. I think that's never been in place as far as I'm concerned before us, where they could turn to an organization and say, okay, we need guidance on setting up a multi-faith room for our players and or staff. How do we do that? And knowing that once that is completed, the community is going to look at it and think, okay, they didn't just go off their own backs. They actually got the support from a Muslim organization who knows what they're doing. I think that's the key thing here as well. I'd say what motivated me to start Muslim Sports was it's a personal journey, right? It's a long 3-4 year journey. Nothing is built overnight. Although we launched in August 2020, our work with athletes started way before then. And it wasn't a thing where we thought, okay, in July 2020, let's set up Muslim Sports and let's support these athletes. It's been a whole journey. Stuff that's happened in my personal life that has led me to be at this point or at that point in 2020 to open up Muslim Sports. And I think generally growing up in the UK as a Asian British guy who's born in the UK, I think the two most important things growing up in the UK for me, I know majority of young people probably the same as well, would be faith and football, or faith and a sport, whether it's football, cricket, or whatever sport they want to follow. But you just want to play your sport, but also we hold our faith more dearly than anything in life. You know, it makes us who we are. We can have £1 million in our bank account, but it won't make us happy. What makes us happy is our faith, the fact that we can prostrate to our God, the fact that we can be happy, you know, in how we practice our faith. And on top of that, some of these players, you see that why are these players, you know, playing football on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon, but every time they score a goal or they score a goal or they win a game, the first thing they say is Alhamdulillah, praise be to God, because faith they hold very dearly, and we just wanted to make sure that boys and girls can practice their faith openly with the support of their clubs and it being in a very flourishing environment. Yeah, sure. I mean, we've personally worked with so many different clubs up and down the country in opening multi-faith rooms and supporting their players. I mean, if you go into Watford, for example, in the Graham Taylor stand, they were the first club to sign the charter. There's an awesome multi-faith room in there, prayer mats, contemplation area, and it is literally as you walk out, you've got the football pitch in front of you. So it's awesome. It's combined both without going, literally it's combined both the faith and religion so easily, seamlessly. And there's multiple clubs like that are setting up prayer rooms and that we've supported: Norwich City, Sutton United, Derby County, so many teams, Wolves. So they're doing an excellent job, and I think we should celebrate that personally, in my opinion. and we should celebrate the little wins. And I think I'm proud, someone who's proud to be, British, someone who's proud to be Muslim, someone who holds my faith quite dearly to myself. And I love watching football, although I'm a United fan now, I'm a United fan, but we're not doing that. We're not doing too, but we'll be back. We have to be positive. We'll win the league this year, so we have to be positive.
So I've worked, as I say, in football for 15 to 20 years. I started at Kick It Out, which is the inclusion and equality campaign for football. From there moved on to the FA, which is a partner of Kick It Out and a funder, and then on to Brentford Football Club. So I've worked in grassroots, community, national governing body and professional football. And within all of those roles, my position was partly about trying to bring communities and grassroots football more into the game. So, all of those communities, all those people that love football, trying to encourage them to play in the organised game and become part of that wider football pyramid. If you look at football, it's the world's game. It's the most popular game by a long, long way. Men's football, women's football, and that's shared by all communities. If you go into the Muslim community, the Jewish community, the Christian community, you'll see church leagues, mosque leagues, and often, though, these communities will play football separate to mainstream football, as we call it, to organised football leagues, whether it's Sunday leagues, youth leagues. And actually, we want to bring everyone together into the game. So football is a great leveller. It brings people together on a level playing field. And whether people are of faith or not of faith, they should be able to share the game together, and that's part of the issue. Has lots and lots of qualities. It's good for you physically, it's good for you socially, it gives people lots of skills such as team working skills or communication skills. And actually these are things that faith communities, faith leaders really value too. They're things that are promoted within all faiths. So actually, even though there's a bit of a disconnect often in society, where you will see that a certain community might have a certain perception of the game, often by watching professional football, we try and break down those barriers. Show to people that actually, if your community engages in football, you can get all of these qualities, all these benefits. You'll open up your world to lots of other different diverse people that will enrich your world, and it will be good, especially for lots of faiths who are trying to re-engage with young people. Especially in England, where faith communities have come from other countries, and now you've got second, third, fourth generations. Lots of faith groups are trying to re-engage with their younger people, and football is a really good way of doing that. Okay. So whilst I was at the FA, we did a project called Faith and Football, but it was about engaging with faith schools. So we engaged with a Jewish school, Muslim school and a Catholic school. And year 10 children would come into Wembley Stadium once a week, and they would spend the day together learning about maths, English, but also sharing time together, sharing lunch together. And what they found was that they had lots more similarities through their faith than differences. And because they were young people, they ended up talking about football, and those young people who may never have met otherwise then ended up linking up. The schools linked up past the project, and now they have permanent links. So it was a way of engaging young people who might not have engaged with each other in any other form, but through football, the power of football, we're able to do that. So I've played sport my whole life, tennis, football, lots of different sports. And I think for me to get involved in a job in sport was something very natural. I've grown up in a very diverse area. My family is of mixed ethnic heritage. I was born Christian and I converted to Islam. So this is something that's very close to my heart. I play football with people who are not of faith. And with people who are of faith, and I can see how the things can mix very, very well together. It's a really good partnership, and so I think that's how I naturally came into these roles, and I guess why I've got such an investment and a passion for it. And I think once you're really invested in something, it enables you usually to do much better because you care about it. The two sides you're trying to bring together, which is football, organised football, very professional, very fast moving, and faith communities, which can be not so much insular, but they communicate and work together in a different way. These are two spheres who could work closely together, but because of where they operate and how they operate, they don't. So I guess the real challenge is to bring them together and to show that actually they're all working towards the same objectives. They're all trying to bring people together. They're all trying to help people have a really good experience, be physically and socially healthy, they're all trying to work towards the same objectives, and I guess the challenge is to be the go-between and to bring those people together on a level playing field. Faith and football is really important to me because I love football and I am of faith. And I guess I would see it as I want to improve myself in terms of football, but I see faith as something that can improve me. And actually, you can merge those two things together. You know, they're not mutually exclusive, which people think. They're two areas which naturally support self-development, and the closer we can bring them, for the better.
I've been working in football for the last 17 years, and I've never hidden the fact that I'm a Muslim. And to be fair to all the clubs that I've worked at, Tottenham Hotspur, Liverpool, and here at Crystal Palace, they've all been very welcoming regarding my faith. It's clear most clubs in the Premier League will have Muslim players and staff working at the club. And so the best way of trying to get the best out of your staff is to try and integrate them, is to try and make them feel welcome and try and understand a little bit about their beliefs and how to make it easier for them. So the best example I can give is all clubs that I've worked at, they've always tried to cater for as much as possible various different religious beliefs, or whether it be in terms of dietary requirements, whether they need a specific prayer room, and also when it comes to things like Ramadan, fasting, which Muslims do for up to 30 days of the year, to try and help work with them to try and make it easier for them as well. So this next video demonstrates how, as a medical team, we've been able to support Muslim players. And in specific, this is Curating, and how we were able to support him during the month of Ramadan.
So Ramadan is the 9th month of the Islamic calendar, and it's quite an important month. So during this time, over the 29 or 30 days, Muslims fast, which means they abstain from food from dawn right through to sunset. And it's really a period of self-control, self-reflection, and just appreciate what you've got. It's a question that I'm often asked by the players: what, not even water? And it is. It's absolutely no food, no fluid whatsoever.
We are close to God, praying a lot, read the Quran also a lot, spend the time with the family.
It's something that he's been doing for a long period of time, and even before Ramadan starts, sometimes he will practice as well, doing it a couple of days of the week, so his body gets used to it. So the body is quite good in terms of adapting to the lack of food and fluid. Obviously it's much harder for an athlete compared with myself, because of the fact that the most important thing is that they need to be well hydrated. But they make sure that in the period that they can eat and drink, so from in the evening right through till morning, they'll have several times lots of fluid and lots of food then.
It's depend on your head, it's like mental, something like mental. If you come in to say, yeah, if it's gonna be hard, it's gonna be hard, but if you come mental, it's the more hard month is like if you do that in the pre-season.
That probably is because of the fact that's during when it's the longest time from dawn to sunset, so it can be anything up to 18 hours plus. And the reason it's shorter, or it comes earlier every year, is because the Islamic calendar is about 10 days shorter than the Gregorian calendar by 10 days. So as a result, each year the Ramadan arrives earlier by 10 days.
And after the night when we get the Ramadan, like eating, talking, it's like very, very, very nice.
So as soon as the sun goes down, that's the time to eat. And again, we have to be careful that as soon as it is time to eat, that we don't go crazy and undo all the good work that we've done by not eating during the day. So we normally open the fast with some quick release carbs, so a date and some milk. Usually go and pray, and then we'll have another small meal after that.
It's like a rice and fish, with some onion. We call this food like yassa. It's very, very good. Yeah.
For myself, it's a period where I reflect on how appreciative I have for everything that I've got. Remember those that are less fortunate than yourselves, and also the time for charity as well. So as well as, you know, the sacrifice that we make in terms of giving up food and fluid, also at the end of the month we give 2.5% of what we own to charity as well.
It's very, very good to try, because I remember Christian Benteke is no Muslim, but he do that with me one day. We go after we go in his house. He do the Ramadan, me, Mama, Jordan, and he do the Ramadan. and he pray also with us in the night. Yeah, it's very, very good. Yeah, it's very good experience for him. Yeah, but maybe this month is going to be not the same.
Normally you'll spend the time when you open your fast with friends and family, go to the mosque, and as a result of the pandemic, all those things which everyone else has found it difficult to do as well, meeting up with friends and family, having meals outside, you know, you're not able to do. So that's why it's probably a little bit more difficult.
Because Eid is something like we do that together, enjoy the time, everything is positive. It's like a big moment for all us. It's very, very good. It's an unbelievable month, yeah, for us.
I think first and foremost, just hope that it's a successful Ramadan for all. Be grateful for what we have, and hopefully we can celebrate an Eid Mubarak at the end of Ramadan.
I was a former professional footballer. During that time, I became a Christian. So I was 28 when I became a Christian, and I think, you know, at that moment in my life, you know, there was a sense of purpose rather than a sense of trying to please others around me. So yeah, so that's a little bit of my life. How I came to faith and how it played out in my football career, you know, and just my life generally was, I, as a young boy, you know, chased the dream of being a footballer, and, you know, didn't realise behind the scenes it takes not just hard work, but a lot of mental courage, physical strength, and other attributes as well. And whilst I was, you know, striving to achieve what success looked like in my eyes, you know, internally things were really different. And by the time I got to 28, I was a father of two, married, living in a lovely home, but yet life felt as empty as it had ever felt. So from that, you know, I asked the question, there must be more to life than this. And from asking that question to about 3 years later, through different circumstances, through friendships, new friendships, we ended up going to church. And even though I'd been to church before, this time going to church was different. You know, I heard a different message. I heard what I call a truth. And from that moment, I just thought, well, I'll be a secret Christian. But, you know, very soon after professing Jesus as my Lord and Saviour, you know, some things were happening in the dressing room. You know, the culture was slowly changing in terms of different things happening, more respectful things happening, and ultimately players also hearing about the Christian faith and choosing to follow Christ themselves in their own way. So yeah, it's a real, you know, like I say, it wasn't, faith for me wasn't about Sunday morning. Sunday morning was just the icing on the cake, is what was going on from Monday to Saturday. So yeah, so a real hands-on understanding of the church in action, and not church the building, you know, but church the people, and church can be wherever you are.
Sounds like that was really beneficial to you as a person and as a footballer.
Yeah, without a doubt, because like I say, I strived to chase the dream, and I was living the dream, but the dream wasn't like anything like what I visualized. It was, like I say, a lot tougher, a lot harder than you could ever imagine. And I thought I only had one purpose, and that was to play football and please others as well as myself. But then once I became a Christian, after a year or so, I realized that I was more than a footballer. I had other gifts and qualities that could be that had been given to me, and and I was able to use the platform of football to be able to help others, and help them understand that the place they're in doesn't have to be the place where they stay, or if they've got a life that seems great on the outside, can you help others? Can you help others on that journey? So yeah, a real sense of purpose and an understanding of who I really was, rather than just the footballer that was given to me because of the job I was doing. Beneficial for me on the pitch, because for the first time I understood that I was playing for an audience of one, not to please or try and return the gift and say, oh, thank you, God, but more a case of enjoying the gift and understanding that, if there is a God in heaven and he knows the end from the beginning, he's guaranteed to know the football result already. So what else can I add to that? What can I change? What can I do apart from give 100%? So it took a pressure off me psychologically. It took a huge pressure off me, because, like I say, the seriousness of football is high, and to enjoy it like he did as a kid is very hard. But to enjoy it from a place of, actually, I'm just going to go and give my best, whatever the result and whatever the outcome. And it's freedom, it's a real, freeing moment for me. And people saw this, and asked the question, what was going on in my life and things like that. So it wasn't just words, I'd say, about my Christian faith. There's definitely action. And, and I'd love to be able to say to you that every footballer that has faith has that process, and it all goes well. It doesn't. It really doesn't. But from the outside, my journey was really, it was a lot more peaceful. But I still had the challenges of trying to get a new contract. Does the manager like me? Am I going to be fit enough? And so I still had those challenges, but I had that acknowledgement in myself that, this is what I've been born to do. This is the gift I'm going to use and just enjoy it. My involvement, so I'm still involved in football, but I work for a charity called Christians in Sport, and that allows me to find and support, Christian players or coaches in the professional game, and help them on their journey. Because, again, a number of them, church Sunday doesn't exist for them, fellowship doesn't exist for them. But if we can connect them and get a fellowship group together that they can help each other, and we can help them, then so that's what I'm involved in now. And I'm also planning, starting to get involved with education with the Football League, to do some mentoring with some young players as well. So it's a nice place to be, still in the game, but without all of the political things that come about with it. And so it's nice to be able to offer support without wanting any return, without wanting anything from them.
From the beginning, when we used to play football, me and my sisters, we also play football. So when we used to play football, we had so many difficulties by playing, and at that time there were not so many girls playing football. Cricket was very common, but football was not common, and it was, you can say, it was linked with many stereotypes and societal, barriers. So when we played, there were times when people would come to my father and will complain about our football attire, or they would be like, no, they are not wearing proper clothes, they should be wearing shalwar kameez. Because we used to wake up early in the morning, and we went out in search of football ground in Lahore, which is, you can say, a city, and we couldn't find a proper football ground to play here. So I feel like we experienced all these because of we experienced all these societal pressures, we experienced everything. So we wanted to provide our girls a platform where they could easily play, where they could play without any financial barrier, where they could play without any societal pressure. So yeah, that's, you can say, that's one of the main reasons we started with the league. Okay, so back in 2017, we organized different small camps in different regions of Hunza Valley. And after the camps were successful, we planned that we should, organize one league, one platform for the girls, where they could, come up with their teams, and they could play their favorite sport. So that was the moment when we, organized the league, organized our first league in 2018 in Pasuveli, which was, you can say it lies in the on the KKH, and it's easily accessible for other areas as well. So that's the time we organized our first league. Apart from this, we have faced many problems with organizing the league as well, because you can say there are good people and there are bad people. Not everyone supports what you are doing, and not everyone is against you. So that's what we have to deal with. There were people who, didn't like the idea of a girls' football league, because they were like, a girl should not be playing, her place is in the kitchen, and all the stereotypical taboos and you can say words attached to it. But there were people who supported us in this cause. There were people who were, you can say, helping us in the ground. There were people who were helping us with the teams. So I guess all these people, and all the, you can say, all the people who supported and all the people who discouraged us, you can say that everyone all together made the league. The time when we started the league, there were there were not many girls playing football, and they were not aware about the facilities, or you can say the opportunities that come with the sport. I, being myself a football player and getting educational scholarship in a university in Lahore, I wanted my girls, I wanted to, you can say, make sure that every girl who is playing football in the north also gets an opportunity to study in the city. So I feel like this is one of, you can say, one of our achievements, that most of the girls playing in the north, in Gilgit-Baltistan Girls Football League, they receive a certificate, and through that certificate they are able to get into different universities and colleges in different cities. So this is, I think, a biggest achievement for my team. Yeah, when you play with different teams, when you play with different people, you learn about unity, friendship, and love. And I think this is what the girls in my league, the girls in Gilgit-Baltistan Girls Football League, have also you can say learned about this. They have become very understanding. They love their teammates, they love their opponents, they respect each other. So I think this is what sports can teach us, and this is a very positive change if if a person becomes understandable or has love and respect for the other, for herself and for the opponent as well.
Great.
Because there was time, there were girls who wouldn't play football because obviously their parents didn't support them in that, and or maybe they were afraid of the society and what the people will think about them, that they are playing football and everything. But by time, they you can say by time, when their friends are playing, their friends, they meet their families, and they you can say discuss about how sport is bringing a change in their lives, or they discuss about the opportunities that come with the sport. So I feel like that most of the families have become flexible now, and they are now accepting the fact that sport is a healthy activity, and it has it has no disadvantages if you see in a big picture. So I feel what I feel like and what we experience these days is that their parents are supporting them now. They have they are going against the odds, they are going against the society, but they are supporting their daughter or their children in what they want. So I think this is one of the biggest you can say achievement as well, because if your family is with you, no one can no one can harm you.
Discussing Christians in sport, there are perhaps two dynamics in play. Number one, we will support elite athletes and coaches, men and women, in a range of sports, both global sports, track and field, tennis, when people are on tours, golf, and we'll have staff working in personal relationships and small group relationships with people in club sports, like professional football and rugby and so on in this country. So we'll work with the elite end of the sporting spectrum, but meanwhile, for the thousands, probably millions of people who train twice a week and play once, so they're pretty serious about it, but they're not at the elite end. We also serve people across that whole spectrum as well. So let's take two types of people. Let's begin, first of all, with people who'd say, well, I've got a Christian faith of my own. I'm a passionate athlete. How do I combine these two things? So if we begin there, what we will be teaching people and helping them to think through at different ages and stages of life is how belief in God through the Christian faith relates to their created capacity to play. God made them competitive. God made them able to play. God gave them their talents, and the result of the talents that are God given to them, it allows them to enter relationships with people of similar sporting, athletic talent, and that engages in a much wider community and can be a pretty attractive aspect of life and sport. So it's giving them an assurance or a clarity that their sport is not a matter of chance or something incidental to their creator. Secondly, there'll be, of course, millions of people who play sport who don't have a Christian faith. And in that sense, I think there are aspects of well-being, holistic mental and physical well-being that can come from considering faith positions in sport, because it offers a wider perspective, particularly at the highest level of sport. It offers a wider perspective of meaning than simply performing and winning. Well, at the most practical level, for example, every week, we will host a number of Zoom gatherings, typically an hour long. This would be for men and women, all elite players. So there'll be a range of sports, and they'll come to the meeting. It'll last about an hour. There'll be a 10-minute reflection on the Bible and what it says about God and humanity. The people in the Zoom call would then go off into twos or threes or fours to discuss that and its application to their particular life as a football coach or an elite footballer or rugby player, hockey, tennis, cricket. They'll go off and discuss that with peers, come back in about 30 minutes later, feedback to each other's groups, some of the highlights of their reflection, and on your way after an hour. Now, that would be a typical week for us with a number of sports people. And then as a result of that, of course, we'll have staff members traveling around the country and around the world, meeting individually and in small groups in person with those athletes. That's the paradigm for the professional elite end of the sport. The same structure happens with universities. So in the top 50 universities, British sports universities, we'll have small groups, peer groups of Christians in sport who will meet in person. And it also happens with young people. We facilitate camps, summer camps for 11 to 17-year-olds. Same constituents again, young people, highly competitive sports people meeting together to think through the Bible in relation to their sport. As a young man growing up in Wales, I ended up playing football at Cardiff City when I was about 16 and stayed at the club until I was 21. But meanwhile, I did a philosophy degree, spare time really, afternoons. And I was then transferred to Cambridge United as a 21-year-old. I had no faith of any kind. And I guess a pivotal point for me was being away from home, a long way, longish, 300 miles away from home for the first time in my life, living here on my own in Cambridge. I just had time to think. I'd finished my studies. I was now only playing soccer, so I had a lot of time to think. And part of the reflection in that period was I started reading books about wider spiritual matters. So that's the process that began the venture. Perhaps a tipping point for me was some 6 months after beginning to think about faith, God, faith, and sport. I played against my boyhood hero. Kevin Keegan was my boyhood hero. And he was in his last season as a professional player at Newcastle. They were in the championship as it is now. We were as well. And to cut an exciting story to me short, I scored. We lost 2-1. I scored. We lost. And on the bus back, I remember thinking to myself, well, this is it. I've dreamt of something like this since I was a little boy, and it's happened. And it was an anticlimax. And it's a story I've heard numerous times with young athletes throughout my life since then. You strive and strive and strive for the one thing that you think will give meaning. And when you get there, however small it is or big it is, it's an anticlimax. And I think it was a result, well, it was as a result of that experience that I really started reading the Bible. I started reading books that defended religion, Christianity, defended its veracity, because I was a philosopher as an undergrad, so I was pushing and challenging. And it probably took me about a year's worth of reading and thinking before I felt I wanted to be a Christian. Thereby began, I'm 60 now, I was 22 then, thereby began the rest of my life integrating sport and faith. When I did become a Christian, playing football at Cambridge United, one day a guy came from an organization called Christians in Sport, which was pretty new. It had been started in 1980, it was 1984. And this guy showed up at my football club and said, did I know there were other people who were Christians who were playing professional football? Now, for 6 months, every time I played against old friends, I'd say to them, anyone here go to church? Or anyone here a Christian? Nobody ever knew anybody who ever went to church or was a Christian. So I said to this chap, no, there aren't. You're wrong. I've been in this game quite a long time, and everyone I ask says there's not. And he said, no, there really are. And I thought, well, you've started an organization, so you must know what you're talking about. You've been at it 4 years. It's your job. So I said, oh, great. Well, go on then, tell me. Now, 90 professional clubs at the time. And he says to me, well, there are 4. I said, 4? What kind of organization are you running? 4. I said, who are they? And he named 3. I said, well, who's the 4th? He said, you. So in a way, there was a moment there when the penny just dropped, and I thought, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only person of Christian faith. Certainly that's all I'd asked about in football. I really thought I was. I couldn't imagine there was anyone else. Never met anybody in all those years. And at that moment, I thought, my word, why has no one ever thought of talking about this or putting these things together? So in a way, there was a vocation there, unbeknown to me at the time, which really began in 84. And I'm in a call with you now. I'm in conversation about it today. So yeah, exciting, really, unexpected and exciting.